I'll just tell a story that I worked at the University of Illinois for 12 and a half years. And I was, one of the better workers, the harder workers, and I produced a lot for them in regards to the type of work that I was doing. It's called technology transfer. So it's taking these research ideas and taking them out to the world so they can become products and services. So if you look at your smartphone, the GPS, the touch screen, those types of things came from universities and national laboratories. And that's what, the research that's funded by, our national governments needs to actually do something that helps the people. So that was my job. And I felt like I was doing my job very well. In fact, I helped them create the office and then also helped them recreate the office 5 years later and everything. But I was feeling a little bit down at one time when my wife was actually had depression.
Welcome to Inspired Choice today. I'm your host, Caroline Bisalski, here to bring you authentic stories, surprising lessons, and powerful takeaways to fuel your journey in business and life. In each episode, I'll take you from one inspiring guest to the next, blending their experiences with my expertise to uncover practical strategies you can use right away. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, stay tuned for insights and actionable tips that make a difference. And stick around until the end for a special freebie just for our listeners. Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline and my today's guest is John Taylor McIntyre. And I'm so happy that he said yes to our interview. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Caroline. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you for saying yes again. And of course, I would like to introduce you to the audience. Let's see. Your journey began in a culturally rich, faith-based household where diverse experiences with Native American foster brothers, exchange students, and refugees shaped your global outlook. By 22, you had visited 19 countries and all 50 US states. After your missionary service in Japan, you embraced Japanese business practices like, and you have to help me with the pronunciation, Ringi Saido and Nemawashi, which became cornerstones of your consensus-driven leadership approach. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, John Taylor McIntyre.
Thank you so much again. Glad to be
How
here.
about the pronunciation of the Japanese concepts?
Yeah, so it's Ringi Saido and Nemawashi.
Okay. For those who are familiar with the Japanese language, I am not, but I'm willing to learn. I'm here to learn always. Thank you again for being here with me. And my first question to you is, you've traveled the world and lived through unique cultural experiences. What's the biggest mindset shift you've gained from those diverse encounters?
Well, whether it's a mind shift or not, because I had all these different people in my home from an early childhood. So to me, the fact that everybody was different and diverse was just normal. I didn't have any concept of one group being better than the other or whatever. So um, uh, being able to travel, through the 19, countries and all 50 states was really my parents doing. We would travel 1 year in the U.S. and 1 year abroad, the next year abroad, and so we did that, quite frequently, and that actually helped me understand the value of actually learning from other people and learning from other cultures and just the beauty of it, the fact that everybody's different. My belief is that everybody's on this earth for a purpose, and we all have a piece of the puzzle of life, and so we need to figure out how our puzzle fits in, and we need to help it fit in. But what I do right now is I help leaders actually provide margin around their people, in their puzzle piece, so they can not just grow into it, but they can learn and grow as a result of that enablement and that empowerment.
Wow, I understand, and I like that so much what you did because I have a similar goal, so to say. And I started this podcast, so I travel first by doing the podcast in, I think it's over 50 countries. I think, I'm not sure. And also the 50 states, of course, it's on my bucket list, so to say. So I'm very inspired by what you did in real or on the physical, not on the virtual side. So this is my goal. And what you said about expanding, you said growing into that, grow your puzzle piece, so to say, and make a bigger impact. I would say, yes, expand is the word I wanted to add to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Expand is a
it's like
great
the
word. Yeah,
universe, expanding,
absolutely.
right? Yes.
Absolutely.
So
My father
Mhm.
would tell me, don't let your education interfere with your education. So I had a lot of extracurricular things that I did when I was growing up. And I was always concerned about school. And he says, well, you can always do that assignment later. You can always retake the test or whatever. But these certain activities that you're doing, you'll never be able to do them again. And at this time. So don't let your education interfere with your education is really something that's really hit home to me, and I think that's something that if everybody understood that, and especially the education systems in our different countries and everything understood that, then I think we would have more vibrant activities going on and people being able to actually become themselves more, and that's my goal.
it's a great concept. I never heard of this before, but it makes totally sense. And I can tell you, there is like a battle going on, and people say like you don't need a formal education, or then the other people feel bad about because they have those degrees, but then they are told that you are not successful in your life, and then it leads to you have to buy this coaching, right? So this is the personal development world, but we forget the aspect of the outside education, the real life education, what you were mentioning, by traveling or experiencing diverse cultures. I'm so grateful to meet someone someone like me, so open-minded and traveling the world as well. So I have another question for you, of course. How can leaders apply Japanese business practices like Ringi Saido to make smarter decisions and build stronger teams?
Let me explain Nemawashi first, and then we'll go into Ningi Seido. So Nemawashi was a technical term at first, and it was for gardeners. So these are the bonsai masters, the people who are clipping the trees, the bonsai trees, and making them really beautiful. This asymmetric beauty. Well, they don't just do stuff on the outside to make it beautiful. They actually do stuff with the roots. So ne means roots, and mawasu means to dig around the roots. So to get it to have air, to give it space, and to allow it to grow and further develop. So what they do is they'll actually, before they transplant that plant from one pot to another pot or a plot of land, they will take soil from the new place, put it in with the old, and then they let it ruminate. So they let it just sit there for a while. And once it's actually, when they feel like it's ready, then they'll go ahead and make the transplantation, but it makes the transplantation less traumatic for the plant. Well, it's not just a technical term, it's become a cultural term for the Japanese. And basically, digging around the roots means, you're preparing the groundwork for a discussion, for something that you're going to go forward with. So with that mindset, as one of the first implementations of consensus building in Japan, then you go into Ringi Seido. And what Ringi is like a circle, okay? And Seido means system. And so you have the circular system. So at the top of this circle, you have the CEO or the shacho, and that's what they're called. And this person is not like Americans. Americans do top-down decision making, and I found that doesn't work very well for people. That oftentimes there's lots of miscommunication, misunderstandings, because what the person at the top is thinking and what the people at the bottom are on different levels are thinking may be completely different because the languages they speak are different. So what happens is that let's say that somebody on the factory floor has an idea because there's some problem, something's not working, timing's not right, people aren't in right places. So they come up with a solution and they'll talk to their manager here, it's a middle manager, and then that manager says, hey, that sounds pretty good. They do a little bit of fine tuning. And then this manager talks to a manager over here whose group actually needs to work with this other group. And then they have this consensus going around, and they determine, hey, this makes sense. They all put in their input, and then finally they have what's called a dingy show, and the show is paper, it's a document, and they come up with the dingy show, and it goes up to the shot show. He puts his honko, his stamp on it, and then all of a sudden everybody just moves as fast as possible. So it takes a little bit more time than the Western way of doing decision making, but the output is much greater. And that's why the Japanese and a lot of people who do like Kaizen, continual improvement, these are all consensus building activities. So that's why this has been such an influential thing for me in regards to understanding how you deal with that community and how you get them to be on the same page.
Yes, I understand. And thank you so much for explaining. It has also to do with your view on the world, so to say that everyone is here for a purpose, and there is no, I would say, about hierarchy or something. You know what I want to say? It's not
Yeah,
my mother language, but my purpose is to do this
that's the perfect
podcast
word for
more.
that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it is like, because you explained it before, that you, due to your experience, you don't see those differences, or some people are better than others. Everyone is here for a purpose and serves this purpose. And this is why you can see this. What you explained about the circle, and then the CEO is there, and it is only in our minds that there are levels, or I know there are levels of awareness. We can study this as well. But you helping the companies, I understand the concept, how you are doing this. And about what you said about the roots, it reminds me, when you when you set fishes in another, I don't know how the word, container or so. Then you have also to take the water from the old one to the new one, that they don't die or so. And when the farmer prepares the soil for planting something in how's the word, in spring? Yes, in spring. Then he has to. It's also like, I don't know the word. There's the
Yeah,
word.
they need to deal with the roots. They got to break the roots up so that they can actually spread out and grow.
Yeah, and enrich with oxygen.
Oh
When
yes,
you do this,
absolutely.
you described it. I could see I could see it in my mind
Well,
with the bonsai, and I
so
love it.
my wife is a gardener, and she's Japanese also, but when I'm helping her in the garden, I understand that when you actually have a plant and you're taking it from one place where you grew it, you started it, it'll, if it stays in that little container, or even if it's a bigger container and it stays there too long, it's going to be root bound. And once it's root bound, then the green of the leaves and everything is not going to happen as like it's supposed to. So being root bound is really not a good thing. And so we need to think about that as for people too. That's why the margin is so important around the puzzle piece. We're giving it air, we're giving it space to grow and develop.
Wow. Okay, I understand. We create the space first, because if there's no space or no oxygen, it cannot grow or expand further.
So one thing, another thing about my background was about intuition. And when I was 9 years old, I had my first bout with intuition, or that I recognized as my first bout with intuition. So I was in the living room on a Sunday afternoon after we had dinner. My parents had had a friend come over. That friend had been in a musical the night before at a playhouse in town. And so we had seen that musical, and I was listening to my mother and this lady talking. And she was talking about the theater and how wonderful it was and all the exciting things about it and about the stage and the performances and everything. And it just really, really caught my attention. And so she then told my mother, "Oh, Nancy, there's going to be tryouts for The Sound of Music in a month, and you ought to go and try out." And my mother just said, "Oh, that's silly. I could never do that," and everything. But the lady left, and I told my parents that I'm supposed to go to that tryout because I actually felt in my heart that I was supposed to do that. So then they kind of like patted me on the head and said, "Oh, that's really cute, John, but you've never sung before in front of people. You don't even talk to people. So how could you get on the stage and do anything?" But I knew in my heart that I was supposed to do this. So at dinner time, when we were going to school in the car, I would bring it up and then it would always be this dismissal. So finally, 2 days before, I told them, well, if you're not going to take me, then I'm going to have to take the bus because I'm supposed to go here. And if I took the bus, it would be it's a very dangerous area of town. So they said, oh, well, we'll take you. So I went to this tryout, and there's hundreds of people in this tryout, and there's like this little murmurs, little talking going on in the background as people are singing and everything. So my number got called. Went up to the stage, and I told the accompanist to play Edelweiss. And then I sang the song, and out came this big voice from this little 9-year-old body. And then the room just went totally silent. And I knew then that something about performance, something about music was going to be a part of my life. And from 9 until 19, I was in 30 productions and did some minor television stints, and then also did some dramatic recordings and some vocal recordings because I was a soloist with the boys choir in town. And so that was very interesting. It was fun performing, but I realized now, looking back, that the activity that I did in the theater was not so much to have me perform and be in front of people, although that had some advantages. It helped me out in some ways, but it was also I learned that the theater was a mini cosmos. So you have this little world, a little city, and the mayor happens to be the director. And the director then has all these people in there, and people think that the stars of the program are the ones that they're going to see. But I soon learned that that everybody on that team was important. So everybody had a part. The people on the sound, the lights, the people who created the sets, the people who wrote the scripts, the people who did the music, all the performers, and even the people who sweep the brooms, sweep the stage, they were all important. And so I recognized that everybody had a place and that we needed to make sure that everybody was able to do their part. So that, along with the cultural type aspects, understanding this community type thing helped me understand that all these things are important. So with that, I created what was called the sync system. And this is synchronize yourself naturally within your community, SYNC. And the synchronized part talks about the consensus building. It also talks about how you break the curse of Babel. So we may be in our own household, and we may actually, even different people in our household, they speak different languages. They have their own way of talking. Well, that's the same way within a company. You've got the accounting speaks different than marketing, that speaks different than the technical people in the research or the development side. Anyway, you need to get everybody on the same page. And then you need to understand those orbs of influence and how you relate to each other. And so anyway, that theater concept really helped me kind of pull things together and help guide me throughout my career and how I was doing my jobs and also leading my teams as I was going forward.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I'm impressed now, and I
Well,
I
you don't need to
learned
be
so much.
impressed. It's just that that's where my thinking came from very, very young. And the idea that, first of all, intuition, I think, is still part of each person. And we need to understand that that's part of the naturalized part of my sync system. You need to understand, how you deal with others. And so there's a lot of different components in the naturalized part, including intuition. But like the Koreans, they have a thing called nunchi. And what nunchi is that the Koreans are very good at this. They go into a boardroom or they go into a networking event, and they can actually figure out how they fit in, okay, or don't, okay. And then they'll figure out, what they want to do, and they'll figure out how they come to that point. And so you need to look at your surroundings and see how people are receiving you or how you're receiving others, and that will help you out.
Wow, what a great answer. Thank you so much. And I wanted to ask you, what if people don't have the awareness yet that you have about this orchestra, so to say, and the conductor, and if they don't feel that they belong, when I'm in the theater or so, and I don't see my role, but I am important, as you mentioned, what can I do?
That's a very, very good question, and I think a lot of people have that, and I've had that in my own career. Every once in a while, you get into a situation where, how did I get here? And you wonder, well, I don't feel like I'm being accepted the way I need to be. I'll just tell a story that I worked at the University of Illinois for 12 and a half years. And I was, one of the better workers, the harder workers, and I produced a lot for them in regards to the type of work that I was doing. It's called technology transfer. So it's taking these research ideas and taking them out to the world so they can become products and services. So if you look at your smartphone, the GPS, the touch screen, those types of things came from universities and national laboratories. And that's what, the research that's funded by, our national governments needs to actually do something that helps the people. So that was my job. And I felt like I was doing my job very well. In fact, I helped them create the office and then also helped them recreate the office 5 years later and everything. But I was feeling a little bit down at one time when my wife was actually had depression, and so I was going into this depression state myself, and I was finding that the things were like really crazy. And so this intuition, I've always felt like, okay, when's the time to actually make a change? And I didn't feel like I was supposed to make a change yet, but I felt like I was stuck. And so in my office, there was a friend of mine, a colleague, that he would say things just off the top of his head, not always thinking about what he was talking about. And then sometimes it would be offensive. And so he had to actually go to a coach, a professional coach. And as I watched him go to this professional coach, and we would talk, for an hour or so each time afterwards, just to kind of get a feel for it. And this is when I learned about coaching and the value of coaching. And so I asked my boss, I said, does somebody have to be in trouble to actually be able to use a coach? And she says, no. She goes, if you'd like to use a coach, you can use a coach. We'll find one for you. And I said, well, I've already found the one I want. I want the one that Mark has. And so anyway, I was able to use this coach, and I had this coaching for a year, and it was very transformational for me. It helped me become more assertive and really understand what I was missing and how I needed to work with all these different people. And so with that assertiveness, then I was able to, 2 years later, actually make a very big jump up in my career, going to another place. And then 5 years after that, I made a huge jump up, and I ended up in Doha, Qatar. So going back to your question, when we don't feel like we have the answers ourselves, or we feel like we're in a place where we're not comfortable or we're not being accepted or anything, I think the most important thing we can do is try and find mentors. And that could be, somebody you look up to, somebody in the organization that you're at, that you look up to, that you feel comfortable with. Being vulnerable with them is really important. If you don't have that, then find a coach or somebody in your personal life that you can do this with. But I have many mentors, and since that point of having that coach, I've had dozens of coaches throughout my career, and I'm still working with coaches. Even though I'm a coach, I'm still getting coached on the different aspects of how I make me meet myself, better in these different areas where my weaknesses are. I always go and try and do that. The other thing is actually reading books. And so I have two Salukis. They're like a greyhound. It is a desert greyhound that I brought back from Doha, Qatar. And so they need lots of walking. So I take them for an hour walk every day. And while I'm walking, I listen to Audible books. And so I'm able to read about 2 books a week because of this. And so I'm getting time with my dogs. I'm getting time exercising, but I'm also exercising my brain at the same time. And when I'm doing that, I'm always listening to books that are going to be uplifting and that are going to help me get out of that little bind that I am in right now. And it may be something that I'm talking about with my coach or whatever, and augmenting that. But whatever we can do to help things go along, that helps us out. But also that understanding the need to research things when we have these questions, or we have these what we think are intuition. Okay, we need to, if we keep on getting pinged, keep on getting that same message over and over again, look into it and start researching it, and then get it in your mind as to what it's actually meaning, and then you can actually go ahead and make decisions later. But that's the whole thing that we need to be doing, is getting outside of ourselves by having mentors, coaches, getting outside knowledge to help us solve our problems, but always questioning where we're at, and trying to figure out where we want to go.
Wow, that's so true. Thank you so much. And it feels like you answered two questions in one. The first was like, when I don't feel like I belong, how can I change this? And your answer was get a coach or mentor. And also I always ask people about if they have coaches and mentors. You also answered that. And I want to point out, so one of my takeaways was about your work with at the university of the technology transfer. And I love that so much, because what people, and it's very important to emphasize this, what people see out there is people like Steve Jobs, he invented the smartphone. And they only see the overnight success, but they don't see the role of the universities, or I don't know how you call this, education system, or research. It is research.
Yes, research.
Right?
Yep.
It's just,
Yep.
yeah, I will find the word. I know what
You got it. You got it.
Thank you. Yes, it is research and development. Yes, R&D, I think. Yes, of course, the words are coming. It's my second foreign language, so I have a good excuse. I learned French first. But no, I do this podcast to train myself as well. So this
You're
is
doing
my
awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you so much. Yes, it is because of you. I understand you and your message. I transfer this in my mind and I mix it with my words, and then we have the message. Of course, I have another question for you. I hope we still have a little time for that. What's the secret to turning cultural experiences into actionable leadership strategies that drive real business results?
Oh, that's a big one. Well, first of all, the fact that we're having this discussion, and we're from different countries, and we have different languages that we speak and everything, and we're able to mesh things together, that's really important for leaders to understand that each person is bringing value to the plate. So just, you brought up Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs was great at seeing the vision for pulling all these pieces together and putting in a way that was not only efficient and effective and easy for people to use, but it's also very beautiful. And so his job was to actually, see all those things and pull them together. But there's other people who, like you said, who created these aspects or these technologies that are inside the smartphone or whatever the device is, and each one of those people, each one of those parts is really, really important. So as leaders, we need to understand that when we're hiring somebody, we're not just hiring them to fill this little void. Okay, we're hiring somebody, and they most likely are their skills and their expertise is bigger than that space. And if we don't actually utilize that by giving them margin to grow into that, and if we don't if we don't try to get to understand, who they actually are and what makes them tick, then we're really missing a large piece of this puzzle. And it's not going to fit. It's not going to fill things very well. And so the more that we can understand that each person has a unique talent, a unique ability to bring to the table, and we let them actually do what they're supposed to do. So HR, HR processes, you've got people with diplomas, people, what diploma do they have? What certifications do they have? How long were they at a job? Oh, why were they at this job so long? Or why weren't they here longer? Those things are very superficial in my mind. What's more important is really, what is the personality of that person? What makes them tick? What makes them want to do something? And so if leaders can actually pull that stuff together and let them be allowed to talk about the mission and the vision of the company and get buy-in on that, then this team is actually going to move forward like Apple has done, with the same, with everybody in lockstep. You know, they're working together, they're marching together, they're all going down the path together, but they're energized because they've been allowed to fill that margin. They've been you know, they've been appreciated for the things that they're bringing to the table. I think one other aspect of this is that we live in a global world right now, and I don't just mean that we're selling things, you know, our services or our products to other countries, but it's even more so than ever that in every country there's other people coming in that are filling those blanks that need to be filled in, and we need to really celebrate the fact that they're bringing something in, and not change them to our way, but augment what we're doing with bringing their talents and their abilities to show us what they can do and what they can add to the whole mix.
Wow, what a great answer. Thank you so much. What I get from this is the greater vision. You mentioned Steve Jobs, and also the reason why people want to work at a company. It is the desire for a certain goal, and if the leader recognize this or identify this, then they can be coached or directed to the
Absolutely.
vision of the company, I would say. Yes, this is my summary for what you said. And I want to talk about your goals and intentions, and also, do you set goals for yourself, and what is one of your next projects? You mentioned a book, your book in the beginning.
Yeah, so I have a book that's coming out. I have a chapter in a book that's coming out next week. And the book is called I Quit: How to Lose Your Job and Find Your Dream Career. So there's 19 thought leaders throughout the world that have come to put this book together. And my chapter is called The Intuitive Maverick: Navigating Career Transitions with the Sync Method. And so I go through and talk about how early on, after college, I thought I was going to get a particular job and everything, and I thought that my intuition was actually telling me that I needed to do this, but I really found out later, because I didn't get the job, and I was really depressed about that for a little bit. But I realized that my desires, what I thought my desires were actually getting in the way of what my intuition was actually telling me. Because I look back now, if I had taken that job initially, then I would have been on a completely different trajectory than where I was actually able to go. And to see where I am at right now, I see that all these different things that lined up to help create me who I am, have allowed me to actually be able to share myself and my vision with others to help them become more of what they are. And I think that everybody has this in them, although it is applied in different ways and everything. So that's what's exciting right now, is this book's coming out next on the 14th. And yeah, the book is again called I Quit: How to Lose Your Job and Find Your Dream Career. And all the proceeds for this book are actually going to go to the hurricane victims of Helene and Milton earlier, last year, at the late last year. And so that's another reason to buy the book, is just to help out people who are in need. Now we need to do something for the people in Los Angeles, but
That's so true. I sent my prayers. I was supposed to have a podcast interview yesterday with a dear friend, and she said she lost her current house, but the house she lived in before also was burnt down. Yes. So prayers are with them, and thank you for sharing all about your book. I want to know more, of course. I love what you do, and of course, I would like to know where people can find you when they want to reach out to you after listening to this episode.
so my name is John Taylor McIntyre. So on LinkedIn, which has a lot of information about me and my background, but also I post daily on LinkedIn, and I'm always giving really lots of information in regards to different ways that we can become better leaders, different ways that we can work as a community, different ways to naturalize ourselves into the community, and then how we actually synchronize things. So LinkedIn, John Taylor McIntyre on LinkedIn, and then mutualprosperity.com is my company. And those are 2 ways that you can get a hold of me.
Oh, please reach out to John. He's amazing. He shares his wisdom. I'm so impressed. I learned so much. Of course. Thank you for this interview. Congratulations on your book. Of course. I love it. I love books. And now it's time for your final thoughts to the audience, please.
So I guess my final thoughts are twofold. Don't let your education interfere with your education. So think outside the box. When we think outside the box, we become a more whole person, and we actually are able to find out what we're supposed to do. It's thinking outside the box that comes to the second thing, and that is to figure out what you're supposed to do by using your intuition. And you need to exercise your intuition to actually utilize it the best way. So if you can not let your education interfere with your education, thinking outside the box, and that allows you to have this intuition guide you, you'll be able to go further than you are. And I guess the fourth thing is, remember, mentors and coaches can help guide you along the way. They're not going to tell you what to do. They're going to help you find what you need to do.
Wow, what an important message today. Thank you so much for our interview.
Thank you so much. It's a blast.
See you. Oh, yes, and see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to Inspired Choice today. I'm thrilled to have you on this journey of growth and transformation. Don't forget to hit follow or subscribe to stay connected and never miss an episode. And here's something special. Grab your free 20-minute breakthrough session with me. It's designed to help you kickstart or level up your business. Just check out the show notes for more. Until next time, keep making those inspired choices. See you in the next episode.